Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Pro Wrestling Logic YouTube channel and the continuation of our World Class Championship Wrestling Review series. We are into the month of February in 1985. Can't believe we're going that far. And we start with a very interesting interview this week. There's some really bizarre stuff, and then a typical main event. But Gary Hart talks about the one man gang coming into world class and the effect that that's going to have. He calls that his insurance policy. He is very committed to the gang. He basically says that will ensure Chris Adams to have a clear line to the world championship. He's convinced of this. He's comfortable with this. We do a review of the process here of the attack on Kerry Von Erich the previous week, and that's pretty clear too. Obviously, Gary Hart very much entrenched in world class, except for he's been here the majority of the time, except for maybe 6 months or so here. Big deal. But so Kelly Kiniski against El Diablo in singles action, and we're kind of moving through that, and obviously El Diablo hasn't exactly done a whole lot here. Kiniski, also a guy who hasn't done as much as he probably would have liked at the time, but enough to get some note. Basic arm holds and arm locks and the like. Diablo, a masked star. They always seem to have one or two of those, at least, in the territory. I don't know if that's because they're close to Mexico or what the deal is there. Crossbody by Diablo early. Kiniski, who many times said before, but is the one of the sons, I think 5 sons, of Gene Kiniski, former NWA champion. He's starting to come into his own a little bit. A couple of victories here and there. Again, a lot of arm work. He is currently a guy who usually uses the backbreaker or the neckbreaker to get the win. The majority of the time, it's a backbreaker when he does get a victory. And so, there's a spinning neckbreaker there. Slower match, but he's also very much an older school type guy, so it would make sense for him to work slower style, slower pacing. He does, force his opponent to carry a lot of weight, and that's another factor too. When I say carry a lot of weight, a lot of chin locks and that sort of thing. Slows matches down. He can get more out of basic holds than a lot of guys can today. And for those that have contacted me privately, yes, I do prefer this style of wrestling over most of what we see today. I can watch today's stuff, but my preference is always going to be to watch older school stuff prior to the Attitude Era. That's my preference. Anyway, he does win this match, but he wins with a knee drop, a Harley Race style knee drop. We then move to Johnny Mantell and Jake Roberts. Interesting match here. Mantell's been around quite a bit too. And for fun, just so you know, I went to the end of every year, the end of '85, the end of '86, the end of '87, and the last show in '88, and just looked at lineups. '86 is where I think we're going to have the drop off in quality and quantity of programming that is higher level. Sometime in 1986 is when I see that happening. Through the end of '85 looks good, but there's a point in '86. By the end of '86, it's definitely jumped the shark. Anyway, Mantell and Jake Roberts. I'd say this is maybe a month away, a little less, from Jake Roberts leaving the promotion, or at least taking a sabbatical. Roberts, as mentioned earlier, one of my favorite guys of all time. He can get a lot out of just a headlock. He can get a lot out of anything he wants to do, really. And so that's there. Mantell, bit of a journeyman guy. He's probably got a 50-50 record if we look at results. He does win. He's also a guy that they kind of use as what I call a tester. He will go 10 minutes, 15 minutes with a guy. Also, he does have striking ability, single punch in this match, and it was notable to me. Took Jake Roberts down, inverted uh, neck vice by him as well. And again, you see a lot of that. You see a lot of the continuation of front face locks and chin locks and just that. Because Mantell is the type of guy not about the flash, not about the finish, but putting time in. And I think a lot of fans that have come up in the last 20 25 years, so let's call it the Raw era, they don't understand the benefit in the old days, especially even the pre-cable era, especially, of putting time in and getting 10 minutes on TV, 12 minutes on TV, 15 minutes on TV to get people to come to the arenas, and that's where you get your payoffs. And I still think there would be value in that model. But I also think that an independent company should be showing everything they do as episodic television. So if you run monthly shows, all 12 should be available for stream. If you run 25 shows a year, all of them should be available for stream. I believe that wholeheartedly, and I think it's wasteful not to be using that as a model. Anyway, knee drops and the like from Mantell. Longer match than average for Jake Roberts. This probably a match where they wanted to put in time, make Roberts look a little more vulnerable because he hasn't thus far, which makes sense, especially if he's on his way out in the next month or two. Roberts sends him out to the floor, trips him up, and the like. Roberts is the type of guy who, you can get 15 minutes out of, and he barely breaks a sweat. He is that guy. He can get a lot out of nothing or a lot out of everything. Sunset flip attempt, but the breakdown of the punch by Jake Roberts, and as we come up, double knees, which looks so much different than double knees, in today's world. But Mantell hits double knees. It's a clothesline and is really dominant of Jake Roberts. So I think there's kind of a little bit there. The high knee, also by Madrill, and Roberts puts his knee over the bottom or his foot over the bottom rope, and we actually get, I believe, a time limit draw out of this match, and just an interesting thing there. I think it reestablishes Madrill as a guy that should be taken seriously. Then we have a really bizarre interview with Kevin Von Erich and a gentleman from Israel. I guess it's just promoting that they're going to be going there. Seems like the idea behind the interview anyway. I don't even remember his name. I didn't write it down here. But basically, there is a fan from Israel that comes in where they start talking about Israel as being a big deal. Kevin Von Erich and Billy Haynes versus Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez is your main event. Gary Hart still very happy with his duo there. Sunshine, who has been a mainstay longer than I imagined her to be, is still here, and she has aligned with Billy Jack Haynes or Billy Haynes, and she wants the elimination of Gino Hernandez still. All these months later, probably a year into that feud or a little less. But anyhow, Haynes is a guy that unfortunately, I think I've mentioned this before in previous audios. He doesn't really get a lot of momentum continually. He'll come in. He comes in really hot into a territory and then drops off, and then comes in, leaves really hot and drops off. And I think a lot of that has to do with personal demons and all that stuff. But anyway, so I mean, a breakdown. Von Erich and Gino spend a lot of time in the ring. Again, Kevin Von Erich, his use of the head scissors and just jumping head scissors and leg cravats and all that, such a big deal. He goes after Adams. Adams moves out of the way quickly, but nothing gets settled there. Um, Haynes takes a little less of this match than I would imagine him to have. Gino always breaks things down in a more, I guess, blunt sort of way or abrupt sort of way, um, and that's kind of what's there. Um, Roberts is up and going. I'm sorry about that. I'm thinking Jake Roberts from the earlier match, but uh, Hernandez is up and going. Meanwhile, on the floor, there is basically a mugging of Chris Adams as Billy Jack Haynes lays him out on the floor for quite a bit. Uh, Kevin sends him into the ropes or into the post on the outside, and we just kind of see them brawl around for quite a bit. Gino Hernandez still cuts things off, and uh, you know he's the guy that settles the match back down to a slower pace, specifically with Billy Haynes, and Haynes always manages to come back. They don't ever make him look really weak. He's always the more powerful and I guess I would say the better striker in his matches and opportunities. But the process there is a bigger deal, and that's kind of where it's left. Haynes is not able to get everything done the way he wants to do it, but does hit a big fresh slam on Gino. I think there's a time maybe where the idea might be Gino Hernandez and Billy Jack Haynes seems like an idea. Haynes does get the full Nelson on Gino, but a super kick by Adams, uh, just sliding back in, leads to a victory for Hernandez and Adams, and that closes this week here in World Class. So keep your feet on the ground, your mind in the moment. Until next time, everybody.